Hi there and welcome to the History Teacher. This revision video covers Weimar and Nazi Germany from the GCSE Edexcel 9-1 course. Hopefully you'll also find it useful if you're studying any of the other exam boards or if, like me, you just love history. You can now become a member to support me to continue making this content from just £1 a month. Plus you'll get exclusive access to worksheets, revision materials, and you'll get to vote on forthcoming episodes. The link is in the description. Hi there guys, today we're going to be having a look at questions 3b and 3c on paper 3. Both questions carry 4 marks and are focused on AO4, which is analyse, evaluate and make judgments on interpretations. So what is an interpretation? Well, the exam boards say they are an attempt to portray and or make meaning of the past using evidence. That is a deliberate construct created after the events. So in more simple terms, they are an account of an event or events in the past that are based on research and evidence. They're usually the work of a historian. Paper 3 is the only paper in which you have to analyse interpretations, and it can seem a little daunting at first, but I promise you it's a lot more straightforward than it seems. All of question 3 is linked, so I'm going to be carrying on with the same question I started in question 3a, so you can see how it all links together. So let's start by looking at the questions so we can get an idea of what is required. The first thing you will notice is where it says study interpretations 1 and 2. They give different views on. This applies to both questions. It's telling you to study the interpretations for both questions. You will also notice the focus of the question is the same as in 3a, so we need to continue to focus on this in our answers. Then we see that question 3b asks, what is the main difference between these views? Explain your answer using details from both interpretations. So here, it's giving you some very clear instruction. You will have to state what the difference is and then back it up with evidence from the interpretation. Let's practice this question so we can see what I mean. Here are my interpretations. I need to read through them and highlight any key information that will give me a clue about what the interpretation is saying. The first thing I'm going to highlight is powerful political groups on both the left and right refuse to accept the existence of the Weimar Republic. Already, I'm getting the idea that this might be linked to the photograph of the cat putsch that we saw in the last question. The next sentence confirms this. It says, they were prepared to destroy it by force and replace it with their own form of government. So this paragraph is definitely about the challenges from the left and right. This made it difficult for the new government to maintain order and govern Germany. This confirms what we thought and links it to the focus of the question. Now let's take a look at the next interpretation. This time, the very first sentence makes it clear what this interpretation is going to be about. It says, the hyperinflation which happened in 1923 forced the Weimar government to fear for its own existence. So this interpretation is going to be about hyperinflation, which links to source C. There's a bit of description of the events, but the final sentence confirms how interpretation 2 focuses on the inquiry when it says, people talked openly about removing the government by a popular revolution or military putsch. So we've got our clear difference. One says that the most important challenge to the Weimar Republic was the challenges from the left and right, and the other says that the most important challenge to the Weimar Republic was hyperinflation. So that's going to be our first sentence in our answer. I've written, the main difference between these views is interpretation 1 is focused on the challenges from the left and right in the early years of the Weimar Republic, while interpretation 2 is focused on hyperinflation. Note that I am showing a clear contrast here. Remember, the question asks us to then explain your answer using details from both interpretations, and this is where we're going to use quotes from the interpretations to back up what we just said the difference is. So I've written, for example, interpretation 1 says powerful political groups on both the left and right refused to accept the existence of the Weimar Republic. They were prepared to destroy it by force. And interpretation 2 says the hyperinflation which happened in 1923 forced the Weimar government to fear for its own existence. And that's it. I've clearly identified the difference, and then I've used quotes from the interpretations to support my answer. So let's now move on to question 3b. The question says, suggest one reason why interpretations 1 and 2 give different views about the challenges facing the Weimar Republic in the years 1919 to 23. You may use sources B and C to help explain your answer. Again, the question's giving us some really big clues here. First, we just need to say why they have different views, and then it tells us we can use the sources from 3a to help us. There's an answer to this question which is true no matter what the focus of the question. Historians studying the years of the Weimar Republic and Nazi Germany have millions of sources available to them, and there's no way that any one person could read them all. So we can conclude that the two historians must have looked at different sources to come to their conclusions. We have our answer. Interpretations 1 and 2 give different views because they have looked at different sources. Great! This is easy. If we refer back to the question, we note that it tells us we may use sources B and C. So all we're going to do is link the interpretation to the correct source and explain it. I've written, for example, interpretation 1 may have looked at more sources like source B because it shows the cat putsch, and the interpretation is focused on the challenges from the left and right. You can see I've linked the source and the interpretation and briefly explained the link. I now need to do the same for interpretation 2. So I've written, while interpretation 2 may have looked at sources like source C because they focus on the effects of hyperinflation. And that's it for question 3C. The interpretations will always link to the sources. Okay, that is everything you need to know about questions 3B and C. Hopefully you can now have confidence going into these questions. As always, there is a model answer and a practice worksheet along with my contact details in the description. Now for a quick word from my other half, and I will see you next time.
History teacher's SO here. She's given up work and is living off her savings to make these videos full time. Unfortunately, savings don't last forever, so we're asking for your help. If you can spare any money to help her keep making these videos, please visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description and give what you can. That said, we know these are difficult times. You might not have any money to spare, but you can still help. Like, comment, and subscribe for the algorithm, but also spread the word. Tell your friends, colleagues, and anyone you think might be interested. Thanks.